Family Dynamic Conversations, where families and stories come in all shapes and sizes. I come from a family of 12. You may be an only child. What matters is caring, sharing, and finding ways to relate to one another. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Family Dynamic Conversations. I'm your host, Janice Kingsbury. Thank you for joining me. I like to start my shows by telling everyone that I am number 11 out of 12 kids, all from Bert and Gloria Brosnan in Mankato, Minnesota. Woohoo, Minnesota. I'm continuing my series of fun and fond childhood memories, which in itself sounds rather vague and hard to get that question across and get an answer of, oh yeah, first thing that comes into my head. When I talked to my guest, he said he had so many stories, we'd need a few episodes to cover everything. So I'm very excited to start exploring those stories with my special guest, my husband, Bill Kingsbury. Welcome, Bill. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So great for you to be right here again in the same house. I always ask my guests the number of children in their family and what number are you in that family?
Absolutely. There were 8 of us, and I am number 8.
Number 8.
It's an interesting combination because there was my mom's kids, my dad's kids, and then there was me. So it was hers, his, and I'm theirs. So that's the dynamic of my family.
Yes, we'll explore that some other time.
Absolutely.
That's good. I have to tell our listeners how when we first talked about this, you had mentioned, well, I grew up in so many places, in Louisiana and Missouri, and I had never heard that before. So first, let's start with, where were you born?
I was born in Key West, Florida, actually in the southernmost hospital in the continental United States. My dad was painting the 7 Mile Bridge down in the Key West area, and Mom went into labor, and that was the closest hospital. And I have to go off memory here. I don't think that hospital was actually in Key West. It was on another key. That's where I was born. I don't think we stayed there for very much longer than when I was born.
I was going to ask you if you remember, or if your parents ever said.
We weren't there long, and it was a very difficult birth for my mom.
So you had said a few other places, Louisiana and Missouri. Do you remember how old you were? And you said you might have stories there in those 2 other places. Do you remember those?
I very much do. My dad was a bridge painter and a high tension line tower painter. So we moved where the jobs were. So That's what our life was. And 2 of the places we lived, one was in, and I don't remember the order because I was very small. Miami, Missouri, small town, a couple hundred people. We were there for about 3 months. And one of the best stories I have is when we were leaving, parents and I were pig roast for the entire town.
Wow.
And they dug a hole, like old school pig roast, where you dig a hole, you make a fire.
Like in Hawaii, like a luau.
Yeah, exactly. Like you put the pig in the ground and let it cook.
Yeah.
And I just remember that. And there was people there all day long, and there was a huge pig. And when you're that young, it's not something that's disgusting because you don't really understand it. It was so good.
And again, do you remember how old were you then?
I have absolutely no idea. No idea. I also remember from that same time there was nothing in this town. There was like a general store that had, I think it was the store. I don't think they had a stop sign or a light. It definitely didn't have a light. They may not have had stop signs. And in this general store were pinball machines.
Oh.
And because I was that young and it was the time that it was, I was able to just walk to the general store and play the pinball machine until I was out of money. Well, I got really, really good at this pinball machine to where I
Okay.
would rack up free games because you could do that.
Oh, wow.
And then when I left, we had an agreement to where we would just unplug it so I could come back the next day and plug it back in, and all those games would still be there. Well,
Wow.
it was awesome. And then one day I remember I walked in and someone was playing the game,
Oh,
and I
no.
was devastated. And someone took all of my games and my high
Wow.
score and everything, and I was absolutely devastated.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Did you take
it
your
was.
dad back to the store and say, Dad, they took all my points away from
No, I just kind of lived with it, and it's had this, deep-seated hole in my heart because I was the pinball wizard way back then.
Well, you had to be pretty small. Were you
Oh
up on the
yeah.
chair or something?
Oh yeah, I totally had to push a chair over so I could
Oh,
probably kneel on the chair. Yeah, there was no
wow.
way I was standing at a pinball machine. But I don't remember how long I was there, but I would go in and I would just rack up free games because it was
Yeah.
the only thing to do in town. It was in Miami, Missouri.
Miami, Missouri. Okay.
Yes.
All right. But you said there was something in Louisiana too.
Louisiana, we lived, and if my memory serves me correctly, it was Baton Rouge,
Oh,
where there was the Jambalaya Festival. And
wow.
I have pictures of myself with the Jambalaya Queen
Oh,
when I was
fancy.
super tiny. I know, it was a big deal. And that's where my love of jambalaya,
Jambalaya.
yeah, I love it because it has fond memories of
Still to this
that
day.
time. Absolutely.
And you're what, 30 something now?
Yes, I'm 30 something. We'll go with 30 something.
I don't think so. Maybe.
We don't need to get into age on this podcast. We don't.
Okay. No, well, I've already told them how old I am. Cat's
I
out of the
mean,
bag.
yeah, those were just two places, and there were others, but the two biggest memories of my life was Miami, Missouri, and the pig roast, and Jambalaya Festival. Also, because there were pictures from those times, it kind of reinforced it.
Oh, yeah, sure. How old were you when you moved to Massachusetts? Do you remember?
I
Or did
had
they
to be
tell you?
school age, and we kind of settled down, and that's where we came to Greenfield, Massachusetts,
Right.
where we jumped around to 5 or 6 different houses, and I jumped around to different schools while I was there.
Yeah. I have to jump in here, listeners, because this blew my mind. Back, speaking of Greenfield, Massachusetts, Bill and I lived in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania. It's very near Philadelphia. And my sister Mary and her husband Errol wanted to buy a bed and breakfast somewhere in New England, anywhere. So they had many places they wanted to visit and check it out. And they came back because they were staying with us. They'd drive up and then eventually come back to stay with us. They landed on this beautiful hilltop with this beautiful view. I don't know, what is it, 10 acres in Greenfield, Massachusetts, of all places in New England. This is where my sister and brother in law go, oh, yeah, we saw this place. And Bill's like, well, that's where I grew up. And he had all these friends. And oh my gosh, what did you think when they told you where they landed?
I was absolutely blown away. They said that, and because I know Greenfield, and they actually saw a place, loved it, and put an offer in to a place in
Yeah.
Greenfield for a B&B, and I grew up there, and I'm like, where did you find a B&B? And they told me where it was, and they had to describe where it was. And of course, my memory was back when I was a kid. I'm like, oh, is that just above the old A&W, which had been torn down 25, 30 years ago? So they told
Right.
me the address, and I looked it up. And if I
Yeah.
can continue the story to full evolution, it was a matter of I looking at the map going, wait a minute. I know someone. Wait, you are there? Because one of my best friends lives right down the hill from the property that you just put a bid into. And it
Crazy.
was just like, what are you talking about? So that was amazing how,
Very. Yeah, right?
of
Just
all the places, you're
serendipity.
like, oh yeah, we put a bid on a house in Greenfield, Massachusetts.
Yeah, it was wild. I blew my mind for sure. Now, New England has and is known for nor'easters.
Oh yeah.
So, what possible fun could you have in a winter in Massachusetts, Bill?
How dare you? Of course there's fun. You know, you're from Minnesota. You know the fun of snow.
I hated
Oh,
winter. Hate
I
with a capital H.
capital
Hated.
H.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there was the small stuff of building, snow forts, especially at the end of the driveway where the plow comes by and it makes a 10
Oh,
foot stack of snow. And
yeah.
you dig in with your little shovel, and then you
Right.
take a spray bottle and you ice the sides, and you have this little ice cave that
We did
lasts for like
we did
3
have ice
months.
cave. Yes, we
Oh,
did
that's the
have ice
best.
caves, igloos, if you will,
Okay,
built
okay.
with bricks of snow. Yeah, perfect arch. No, no
beyond
perfection.
that, beyond that, we did from the time it started snowing until probably a week after there was snow on the ground was we had snowmobiles. My dad was a kind of a do-it-yourselfer. He repaired everything. He would buy things and then fix them, and then we would use them for years. And that was exactly what happened for the winter.
Nice. That's awesome.
He would buy used, broken down snowmobiles in springtime because people were getting rid of them because they didn't work. Well, he would buy them,
Ah,
put them in the backyard, fix them throughout the summer and spring, summer, fall, and then we would have a new snowmobile for the winter. And
nice.
I mean, we snowmobiled. My entire childhood was snowmobiling. I was on a snowmobile from probably when I was 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah,
Uh,
nice.
I have memories of me and my cousin Ken riding around a house we had on Silver Street for hours. We would run out of gas because we just rode around in a circle for hours and hours and hours and hours, and it was the
Yeah.
best. When I was in high school, we had so many snowmobiles. At that point, there was three of us living at home, at times four. We had 7 or 8 snowmobiles that were all working.
Oh my gosh. So the friends
We
all came to your house.
Yeah, I had friends over, and we would all have our own snowmobile. No one had to ride double because no one really likes to ride passenger. So we all had our own snowmobile, and we
Wow.
would go out forever. It was on numerous places where I lived in Greenfield. I could leave my backyard, and technically we could go to Canada. The snowmobile trails in Western Mass linked right up to Vermont, and then from Vermont, going to Canada was easy.
Wow. But that would take
And
hours.
oh, well, we never did it. We never went that far, but
Oh,
it was
oh,
it was pretty awesome to know that I could leave my backyard and
yeah.
I could reach Canada. But that was a lot of hot dogs to bring on the trail.
So you mentioned the hot dogs. So these were previously cooked, or did you just throw them in out of the refrigerator?
Oh yeah, it was from the freezer straight into a bag, goes into into this little like cooler thing with the
Okay.
mustard and the buns, and then you drive until you get hungry. And you get off, you start a little fire, and
Oh,
of course hot dogs come in packages of 8.
yeah.
And hot dogs, when you're snowmobiling, taste so much better than anywhere else. So you could eat 4 of them without a problem.
Oh my God.
And you
Not
sit
me.
around.
Sorry.
Oh my god, they're so good when you're a little chilly and you're hungry and you're having fun
Yeah.
and you have a snowball fight and yeah, oh, it was the best.
That sounds fun. So that's snowmobiling. Oh, and igloo creations.
Oh yeah, I mean the snowmobiling stories go on forever. There was times when, because in the I guess early winter, had to prepare the trails, and my dad was part of the local snowmobiling club.
Oh, I
Actually,
didn't know that.
there was a couple of them.
Okay.
So you would have to go out and groom the trails. Well, to everyone, because everyone wants to go fast on a snowmobile,
Oh, yeah.
but I never went fast. You just went at the speed you went, and you just enjoyed the scenery,
Oh,
and you
yeah.
enjoyed the nature, and it wasn't about how fast you could go. It's just about being out there. So we would go out and just groom the trails.
Nice.
And my dad used to make these. I want to say they were skids or something. He would make his own to flatten out the trails, so they weren't
Oh,
doing this the
yeah.
whole time, because you could drag the snow and take out all the bumps and all the other stuff.
So for those just listening and not seeing us, what did the skid do? Just even out the trail?
Yeah,
Because you said some
exactly.
trails were
Yeah, sorry.
bumpy.
So for all those bumpy trails,
Yeah.
that because on a path you have ups and downs. Well,
Okay.
the snow will exaggerate those.
Oh,
So
okay.
this skid, and
Yeah.
it would grab the snow and pull it into a hole, and then it would smooth out, and then it would grab the next pile of snow and put it in the next hole. And we
Oh,
would do
cool.
that for a long time. And we would bring saws and little clippers, and you had to clip away all the bushes
Oh, wow.
and all the overgrown brush to prepare for
Yeah. Yeah.
the height of winter.
That's fun.
And my dad would lead, and then I'd be in the middle, and my mom would probably be in the back with the Eland. That was always her. For some reason, the Eland snowmobile just sticks in my head because
Oh,
that's
really?
the one she rode. Yeah,
Oh, cool. That's fun.
yeah.
Well, if we transition out of winter, and
Uh-oh.
you have a lot of close friends there in Greenfield. Well, you did growing up from what I remember you saying. And the next fun thing in the summer, I assume, was then cycling around town. Now, did you feel like Greenfield was a pretty good sized town when you were young, or did you feel like it was really
It
small?
Yes and no. It was good size when you're on a bicycle.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then as you transition up, it's like, oh, well, this other bigger town, Northampton, is
Oh,
this
yeah.
far and this far. And it's like, oh, we don't live in this little bubble. But when you're, I guess, 10, 11, 12, 13,
Yeah.
which up until that point, it was a bicycle, it's
Right.
a really small town.
Yeah.
Probably a mile and a half to a lot of my friends. But
Okay.
this was back before cell phones existed. And
Yeah.
we would go out at 8 o'clock in the morning. I would go out 8 o'clock in the morning and say, okay, mom, I'll see you for dinner. And she's like, okay, bye. Where are you going to be? I'm like, I'll be with Bill. Okay, bye. And that would be it. And I would be back for dinner.
That's all you needed back then.
She didn't know what we were doing and where we were going. And it was bicycles. So we couldn't really get that far.
Yeah.
And then, then at 14, my friend Bill and I got mopeds.
Oh, right.
It's like old school Vespa.
Okay.
For anyone of a certain age, we had Batavises. We had a couple Batavises. And we went everywhere around Greenfield. We went on all the back roads. We went everywhere. And again, we would get up early, but we could go farther.
Yeah.
Which was fine because we couldn't go too far. But it was fun for us as 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
To just get out and explore everything. And it was the best. There were so many stories of us getting chased by dogs because you go down a road and people had their dogs out and didn't like the motorcycles going by. And
Oh,
the top speed on these things were 25 miles an hour.
right.
Now, you could pedal them, but you don't want to pedal basically a small motorcycle. So you just let it go and you're like, yee! And you're going as fast as you can. And when you hit a hill, it's not good when you got a dog chasing you.
Ooh.
Are
you going up the hill?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Downhill, I'm thinking.
Oh, downhill is you're flying at 40 miles an hour, which is out of control.
Yeah.
And this was before helmets were required. This is before a lot of the safety features that were probably necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Helpful.
My friend Bill, we still talk about that, about getting chased up the hill by the dogs, and we can't go fast enough to get away from these dogs that are
Oh my
chasing
God.
us.
Did you got away from them then, or did they get control?
Oh,
Somebody get control of those dogs, or what?
uh, at a point they just lost interest. You know, they're right on
Oh,
our heels, and at a point they're just like, okay, we don't care anymore.
oh, really? Oh, you
Oh
got
yeah,
lucky then.
we got
You got
lucky.
so lucky.
Absolutely, it was going up Stillwater Hill, I think it was, which means nothing to anybody but Bill and
Anyone living
myself.
in Greenfield, Massachusetts.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hello, Greenfield.
yeah.
Did you cycle with others that besides Bill? I mean, who else you had to have a more than just Bill to ride around town with?
Well, it was funny because my other best friend was my friend Jeff, and he was older.
Okay.
So had a car, he had a truck.
Oh,
So
right.
we never rode around like that on the
Okay.
streets. Now, the flip side of that is he did have a motorcycle and a dirt bike.
Oh, okay.
And when I got to a certain age,
Yeah.
hey, mom, dad, I'd sure love one of these. And they didn't feel comfortable with me on a dirt bike because it was only two wheels,
Yeah.
motorized, going through the woods, which is kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
So their idea, now let's remember the time, they thought, let's give him three wheels because at least he won't completely fall over as much. Well,
Oh.
they've since outlawed those because they are incredibly unstable.
Oh.
But 30 some years ago, maybe more, it was a blast. It was
Yeah.
my friend Jeff and I. Again, if Bill was busy, hey Jeff, what are you doing? Let's go riding.
Yeah.
We would go through the woods, the mountains. We may have gotten close to Vermont. I got to be honest. Like we would go out all day, and with a motorized vehicle going through the trails through the woods, you
Yeah.
could go a long ways. Or we would just run around this place that literally used to be a slaughterhouse, and there was this track that we would go around, and there was a for some reason there was a what we would call the bowl, which
Okay.
was exactly what you would think. It was a giant bowl, and you could go around one side and you pick up speed, and then you could jump out the other side and see how far you could go.
Wow.
And between him and me and his older brother Paul, we jumped out of that bowl a million times.
Are you talking like a swimming pool thing, like a skateboard thing where you can
No,
go
no,
down one side and up the other?
well, yes, just it was just dirt. Like
Oh, okay.
I don't know what this was. It was
Oh,
just a
okay.
great indention somehow related to the slaughterhouse,
Oh, okay.
and it was awesome. And we had so much fun. There were so many pictures,
Yeah.
and this is before, thankfully, before social media. We
Hmm.
have pictures and videos of us jumping and everything else out of
Yeah.
this bowl and into this bowl and running around and crashing. I remember a story when, oh my God, now the stories are starting to flood. I came home one time from a ride. I had a white polo on,
Okay.
and I was all bloody because
Oh,
I had taken a turn around a corner and misjudged, and my front tire hit a stone, and I went over.
ouch.
And
Ouch.
I was fine because at that point I was actually wearing a helmet because mom insisted,
Yeah, there you go.
as
Yeah,
moms do,
as they should.
as they should. But I made it back, and Jeff was nowhere around because as soon as we got back, he was afraid we were both going to get in trouble because
Oh.
I was not in good shape. And I came in, and literally the first thing I said was, "Hi, I'm fine." Now, my white shirt I'm all dirty, and
Yeah,
there's blood coming down. Now my
right.
mom is like, "Oh my God," and I'm like, "Dad, can you go please check the three-wheeler and make sure it's okay?"
That's what you're worried about.
That was the only thing I was worried about. I'm like, because we're going riding tomorrow, and it was just another case of my mom who was like, "Okay, come here, let me take care of you," as she always did when I came in from whatever we were doing.
Yeah. Oh my God, too funny. So if we move into the fall, of course, we can't leave out that you are an avid New England sports fan. For those only listening to the podcast, Bill is pointing over his shoulder to the New England Patriots logo plaque on the shelf behind him. Can't believe we never mentioned his team in this entire episode. Thanks for listening. Back to our program. There it is. When did all that start? I mean, as soon as you moved into Massachusetts, or did your dad care about them prior to that?
I really think it
Or
was
mom?
when we moved to Massachusetts, because we moved around when I was a kid so much, we never had a connection to anything.
So your dad is originally from there, right? Massachusetts?
Yeah,
Or
my
your
dad.
mom too?
Well, my dad is from Shelburne Falls, Mass, and my mom is from Brattleboro, Vermont.
Okay, that's
But back when they were growing up, they both came from like blue collar families. Like, I don't remember the transition into it, but somehow Sunday became football day.
right.
And nowadays of Red Zone.
Right.
Growing up, my dad made Red Zone. He pulled our main TV and then the TV from their bedroom, and he would pull down my TV from upstairs in my bedroom, and he would put the three TVs together, because back then there wasn't many channels.
Right.
Obviously, every station had a football game on. NBC, ABC, and CBS. Normally there would always be a football game on. So he would set up the three TVs in the living room in this stacked formation. Yeah. And Sunday would be football day. And it was so much fun. Football, it's so, even if it's not the team, it's just the idea of watching football with family is so ingrained in me, because it was the day, and we would get up and we would do something in the morning, and it was probably either being outside, it was probably yard work for them, or my mom was cleaning. I was out causing chaos in the yard, throwing the ball against the house, which my mom hated. Or, kicking the ball against the garage, which, when I broke a window, Dad was very happy about.
You're right.
But as soon as football started, that's when we went inside, we had lunch, we watched football. And as I got older, it turned into this thing of like, we always had shrimp on Sundays. So we would have this like shrimp plate on Sundays. It was pretty much the only time we had it. And it was only for the fall, and it was only for football season. And it was just
made it special.
Oh my God, made it so special. And
so cool.
We would watch football from 1:00 until the last game ended at, I guess, 10:00 at night, or whenever it ended. And the afternoon game and the nighttime game was dinner time, so we would barbecue.
Nice.
Which was either chicken or burgers or hot dogs or something on the grill, which was right outside the back door. That was Sunday. That was fall for me.
Now, did you have your friends come over for that too, or did everybody just spend their Sundays with their own family?
It was, thinking about it, it was just a family day. Like a lot of times, depending on where Leland, who was my closest brother, depending on where he was, he would come over. If nothing else, he would come over for Sunday football. We had football pools before football pools were what they are now. Like, we started DraftKings basically. Like, it was just games. You would pick the winner, and sometimes you would go in the paper and look at the spread on Thursday.
Oh yeah.
Because back then there was just papers, and everything was set on Thursday. So we had these charts of the games and who was going to win. And
seriously committed.
Oh, it was committed. Each of us put in $2 per week. Per week. And then whoever won the week got half of the money. So you won $4 per week. And then the rest of it went into the year-long pool. And whoever won the entire season got all the money. The challenge was the winner had to take everybody out for dinner. which always cost more than what was in the pot.
Hey, I think that's how your father planned it.
I think, well, yeah, but half the time he won.
That's more for him. That's so funny.
So fun.
So
Yeah.
so now that you're in this family with me, and you've got Vikings fans, and now we have San Diego sports team fans, and we've got Spencer who's in the Packers, Green Bay. How's that make you feel?
Well, it was great for 20 years.
For those non-sports fan.
Oh, yes.
Why,
I'm sorry.
Bill? Right. Why was it so special? Because you want to tell me.
I do. I kind of do. So that team right over my shoulder, yeah, they were pretty much dominant for 20 years, which was amazing. See, I have to preface that with I went through the 1-15 season. I went through the 4 season. I went through all of those terrible seasons that a lot of teams go through.
Right.
The lucky thing was we got 20 years of absolute dominance. The conversation is now over.
That's right. So listeners, anybody listening out there, do you have those family competitive sports teams in your family? And which teams are they? Because I would love to know if there's big rivalries out there, or if I'm sure we're not the only one.
Janice, you just opened up a can of worms right there.
I can't wait. Let's hear it.
No, to be honest with you, I love the fact that everybody loves their own team, because then when we sit down and we can have fun debates about this team or that team, or when the two teams are going against each other, it's a fun little rivalry. And because there isn't a dominant team right now, it's a little funner because you actually don't know who's going to win.
You're saying there's a chance.
You're saying there's a chance. As my team may win 3 games this year.
So much. The players are going all over the place, all over the time. I can't keep up with all those. So I actually quit fantasy football this year, listeners, because I was getting so serious, even though I was like in the playoffs for 3 years. I don't know how. It's luck, pure, absolute luck. But I was getting serious listening to all the different other fantasy football podcasts and whatnot. And it all made sense, but every day, every week is like, oh no, is my player going to do well?
See, I just, again, it goes back to the history of you would pay attention, like you would read the sports page every day as an actual newspaper to find out what's happening with the teams, to know who to bet for the teams way back when. And it just feeds all into it. Yeah.
So before I let you go.
Okay.
I
got nowhere to go. I mean, I'm...
You're stuck. You have now married into this huge Brosnan family.
Yes, I have.
Yes. And since this is all about family dynamics, I would love to hear your perspective of when you first started meeting all these people. I don't know if you even remember your first Minnesota trip, but I'm sure you met probably 45 people at the least.
I remember it because the best story I have is it was you and Sam and Spencer, our kids, were telling me about the sock treatment or whatever. I don't know what you guys used to call it, but it was the thing of somebody was going to, or multiple people actually, were literally going to tackle you onto the ground and tie your socks in a knot or something. Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Like, you guys had me terrified that I was going to be assaulted on my first visit.
Did we tell you that? Your first visit?
Yeah. I was going in waiting. So I walk in.
Oh, no.
And those who obviously don't know the family, the first person I see is Nick, who is a tree. He's
a big guy.
He's a big dude. Yeah. He's a big dude. So I walk in, and I'm expecting immediately to just get trounced.
Oh, yeah.
And he could not have been nicer. He came up, shook my hand, and it was good. So seriously, for the entire night, I'm like, okay, is he just playing possum? Because
Oh,
he's a big enough. And I wasn't worried. Like, I wasn't afraid I was going to get hurt or anything.
no.
But it was just like, okay, when is it going to hit me? Because I've heard about this socks thing. This socks thing is going to happen, right? This socks thing, and thankfully it never happened. But I think I met, like you said, 45 people, and I met most of your brothers and sisters, so many cousins, because when you show up, the house just exploded. And there was so many people there all the time, and there was so much love in that house. There was people going in and out all the time. Nobody, I mean, if it was a knock as someone was walking in the door. It wasn't
Nothing
a knock
formal.
like, no, it wasn't a knock like, can I come in? It was like, no, I'm coming in. People
Make
were
sure
showing
nobody's
up.
behind the door. I'm coming in.
Think maybe that's what it was. It was a warning. It was a warning for I'm coming through the door, and I've brought food or drink or something for everyone. I wasn't nervous about it because, again, I grew up in a big family, and we had big barbecues multiple times in the summer. We had a big extended family. So I wasn't worried about the number of people.
Okay.
It was more of, would I fit in with a group from Minnesota, which I don't know anything about.
Fit
Minnesota.
in with a bunch of misfits.
Oh, okay. Well, it was more of, because your family is so tight.
Yeah.
And there's so much history and so much community in that one family. Like, how is an outsider going to come in and be welcomed as someone as an older person? Like, when the younger teenagers come in with their first boyfriend or their second boyfriend or girlfriend, it's a little different. How am I going to be, brought into, welcomed or not?
And did they?
Oh, there was nothing but love. There was nothing but love. And I appreciate that. Be. And I love your family so much. Yeah. And I love going back to Minnesota. And I love the banter. I love the I love all the grief everyone gives each other. I love all the even at this point, all the little kids and all the babies and everything. They're
continues
still together.
To grow. This family continues to grow.
Cousins, and they all stay connected.
Yeah.
And that's just amazing. And I wonder how much that really happens in this world, even in Minnesota. While I wasn't nervous because we loved each other and we had started our family, and so I wasn't worried. It was just like, okay, when am I going to get the hazing? And shockingly, it never actually came, or it's still happening. I'm not sure which.
I don't know if it ever ends, really. Every visit is a test.
A little bit.
So if you could think of a couple of things you may have learned through being now part of this extended, huge family, can you sum up in a couple of words what you think is important, what you've learned to be important?
Connection. Now, I don't mean physical connection necessarily. Physical connection is important, but communication. And again, it's not an everyday thing. It's a realization that you could go 2 weeks and still pick up the phone and be like, hey, what's going on? And it's okay that you haven't talked for 2 weeks or a month, because we all get busy.
Very true. Very true.
Especially with growing families.
Yes.
And it's like, hey, how you doing? How are things? Take a breath. Here's what's going on in my life. What's going on in your life? And then all of a sudden, you never know what's going to go down the road. It's 2 hours later. It's all that stuff. And it's like, how's this person? How's that person? And
continues to grow.
It continues, but being invited to weddings and things like that. And you go to weddings, and it's like, it's different than talking to somebody on the phone. It's like, oh my God, I haven't seen you forever. The next thing you know, you start talking to them. Yeah. And an hour has passed, and you're like, oh my God, I'm sorry, I've taken all of your time, And that is, again, a challenge of being with such a robust family that all wants to talk to each other is there
Yeah.
needs to be a 72-hour wedding to where everybody can talk to each other.
Oh my God. Remember when we were planning our wedding and the list just kept growing and growing?
Oh, I do. I do.
70 people, 150 people. Like, oh my God. Yeah,
We know so many people.
it's true. But it's pretty cool anyway, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
great. So, on that note of bringing the families all together and having some wonderful conversations when you do get to go to special events or just have visits now and again back at the old homestead, I want to thank you for joining us to realize how many stories there are when you just sit back and start thinking about where I was, what age I was, and what was happening in the world or the seasons that changed. And it seems to spark a lot of different fun memories. And I'm hoping that you will comment on a couple of fun stories you might have had growing up in whatever small town, big town, huge city that you come from. I want to thank Bill for joining me today and sharing those wonderful stories. It was good to learn even more about you after, what has it been, 20 years now?
It is usual years.
Well, I hope you had some fun and you can join me next time. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you could relate to, as always. Please take care of yourself. Thank you for joining me and be happy. Bye for now.